The Harry Potter universe isn't all chocolate frogs and whimsical charms. It has its fair share of darkness too, and unfortunately, a lot of darkness. Here's the thing, where there's great good, there's bound to be great evil. That's just how the world works. The primary theme of the Harry Potter universe is literally about that. It's about the never-ending battle between light and dark, good and evil. And when magic is thrown into the mix, that struggle becomes not just destructive, but seemingly endless. The Harry Potter world has given us some of the most evil villains in entertainment history. Sure, some characters are layered with shades of grey and moments of redemption, but the real antagonists are immersed in darkness to their core. They live in it, embody it, and have shown those tendencies from the moment they were born. Voldemort. Which is why, in this video, we will be diving into 10 of the most evil witches and wizards in the Harry Potter universe. Dark wizards whose actions forever shaped the magical world's history. Love deep diving into the wizarding world? Subscribe for more magical content and join us as we try to bring you the very best Harry Potter content on the internet. Also, if this video hits 3,000 views or 100 new subscribers, we're going to dive into a part 2 with even more dark wizards and their twisted schemes. Dolores Umbridge might not initially come across as someone with a lot of social historic impact in the story, like some of the other dark wizards, but she was definitely one of the foulest characters in the story. She was the only character in the story that had this annoying, petty evilness to her that just made her absolutely insufferable. The worst part is, she wasn't even a Death Eater. She was just fundamentally a bad person. From implementing downright inhumane punishments as a headmistress to being a cruel bigot with horrifyingly discriminatory views against, well, literally everyone that wasn't a pureblood, half-blood wizard, she essentially did the most damage to the good guys. The worst part is, while some other villains on this list like Bellatrix and Voldemort were bashfully evil, meaning they didn't hide behind a veil of righteousness, Dolores was someone who pretended to be good on the outside, but was just a horrible human being. Ironically, she wasn't even that strong of a witch. She was particularly clumsy in the way she operated and essentially just hid her lack of magical talent behind her oppressive nature. There isn't a lot of information in the Harry Potter lore about Emeric the Evil. We just know he was, well, tremendously evil. Students of Hogwarts were taught about him in the history of magic class and were usually very confused about who he was. It was said that students frequently misidentified him or confused him for Uric the Oddball, which was sort of funny considering how polar opposite the two were. One was a great evil wizard who did some very bad things. The other was just a weirdo. Since we're not confused, we know the evil one was Emeric and not Uric. The only thing known about Emeric's malevolence is that he was one of the first people to ever get his hands on and fully master the Elder Wand. And as we all know, evil people getting their hands on the Elder Wand does not end well. His dark arts affinity was strong enough to catapult the entire southern England into chaos. He was defeated by Egbert the Egregious in a very bloody battle that ended in his gruesome death. The Elder Wand may be hard to come by, but the subscribe button isn't, so while you're here, why don't you click on that? There are plenty of evil characters in Harry Potter, that's a given. But Peter Pettigrew was perhaps one of the most bizarre and honestly unsettling figures in the entire series. Even when he pretended to be a good guy, there was just something about him that didn't sit right with people. Peter was once a marauder, fighting alongside some of the best and bravest characters in the series. This somehow makes his innate evilness even more twisted and perhaps even a bit more nuanced than others on the list. He was the one who revealed Lily and James Potter's location to Voldemort, then escaped and pinned the blame on Sirius. Instead of facing his actions head on, Peter chose to hide and live in cowardice as the Weasleys' rat, Scabbers. When he was exposed again, he didn't seek redemption. Instead, he returned to Voldemort to renew his loyalty and served him openly. And while he couldn't bring himself to kill Harry when commanded, that one moment didn't erase the rest of his vile behavior. Peter Pettigrew was, at his core, a truly despicable character. Alright, here's where we jump into the truly wicked carries of the Harry Potter franchise. Some of the previous ones were horrible in their own right, but these characters, including Gorth Gaunt, were truly on a completely different spectrum of evilness. Those who not only let their entire lives be defined by immortality, but were openly proud and arrogant about it. Gorth Gaunt was a descendant of Salazar Slytherin, who not only inherited his wand, but also his very bigoted views. In fact, she might have even taken those views a step further with her hatred for Muggle-born wizards. Her cruelty was evident throughout her life, but it reached horrifying heights when she killed her own sister and brother-in-law for their so-called Muggle-accepting beliefs. Yeah, you heard me right, Gorth Gaunt murdered her own family simply because their views didn't align with hers. After the murders, she took her niece, Isolde Syri, but wasn't any less cruel to her. Gormleth reportedly forced Isolde to watch as she jinxed muggles and animals for her own twisted pleasure. She even forbade Isolde from attending Hogwarts due to its more progressive stance on muggles. Thankfully, Isolde eventually escaped her aunt's clutches and fled to America. There, she founded the Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in Massachusetts, an institution that stood as a direct testament to Gorth Gaunt's failures. We might consider Peter Pettigrew as one of the more unsettling and bizarre characters in the series, but when it comes to outright heinous and almost demonic behavior, no one surpasses the Death Eater, Bellatrix Lestrange. Occasionally, not even Voldemort himself. The crimes Bellatrix committed were as extensive as they were horrifying. We could spend an entire day listing them and still not cover everything. She wasn't just an awful person, she was also an exceptionally powerful witch, which made her all the more dangerous to everyone who crossed her path. What set Bellatrix apart was her sheer love for evil. Every horrible act she carried out, she did for her own pleasure. There wasn't any family pressure or a need to prove herself. She hurt people simply because she enjoyed it. The worst example of this, in our opinion, was the torture of Neville Longbottom's parents. She tormented them so severely that they lost their sanity and couldn't even recognize their own son. What made it even more twisted was that she gleefully taunted Neville about it when she met him. So yeah, safe to say, Bellatrix Lestrange had a lot of blood on her hands. From torturing Hermione to killing countless people and later reveling in their deaths with her extremely unnerving laugh, Bellatrix Lestrange was clearly the most twisted character in Harry Potter. Want more tales of wicked wizards? Hit that subscribe button. When it comes to dark wizards in the Harry Potter world, not many come close to the one who must not be named, except Acrisdus. We don't know much about this particular man, but we do know that he was alive somewhere in the 15th century and was one of the worst dark wizards to ever walk the world. He wasn't just any other dark wizard, he was the man who built Azkaban. The worst part is, while the fortress was a deathly prison for wizarding criminals, it was literally Acrisdus' home. He made the fortress his personal playground and practiced the worst kinds of dark magic there. He wasn't content with simply studying the dark arts, he actively lured passing Muggle sailors there to torture and murder them in unspeakable ways. An act so vile, it's possibly what made Dementors in the first place. It's said that his years of isolation eventually drove him to madness. Though, let's be honest, he wasn't exactly sane to begin with. He had placed a concealment charm on Azkaban before his death, which slowly faded when he died, eventually revealing the fortress to the Ministry of Magic. The investigators who found the fortress were so horrified by what they found that they refused to speak of it. All we know for sure is that the place was infested with Dementors. In a world full of dark wizards, Acrisdus stands out as one of the most twisted. His name might not come up as often as Voldemort's, but let's not forget, he's the reason Azkaban became the horrific place we know today. Salazar Slytherin is the one character in the Harry Potter universe that just doesn't seem to fit the bill on any side, honestly. Was he bad? Was he good? Or was he just too immersed in his old school beliefs? Let's be honest though, he gave a whole lot of bad vibes. Sure, he was one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, which is literally the biggest deal in the entire Harry Potter universe, but no one can deny that his whole legacy is kinda messy. to say the least. Let's start with the obvious. Salazar was an incredibly talented wizard. He literally helped create the Hogwarts school that shaped generations of witches and wizards. He also taught there like a normal teacher and was genuinely interested in helping wizards. But the thing is, his values, they were questionable. While he was interested in helping young wizards learn magic, this generosity of his only extended to pureblood wizards. He was essentially the man who introduced the idea that only pureblood wizards should be taught magic. A problematic idea so massive that it literally caused a domino effect on future generations. He was so blinded by his hate for Muggleborns that he built a whole secret chamber under the school hiding the basilisk so it could literally rid the institution of them. To make things even more drastic, his legacy didn't even end there. The house, named after him, Slytherin, went on to become a hub for some of the most ambitious, but also, let's face it, sketchy characters in the wizarding world. And let's not forget that one of his descendants was Voldemort himself. Coincidence? Probably not. So yeah, Salazar Slytherin was a brilliant but deeply problematic man. His name might be plastered all over Hogwarts' history, but it's kind of hard to separate his genius from the darker stuff that he left behind. Everything foul in the Harry Potter world, Horcrux, Basilisk, Dark Arts itself, can be credited to one man, and one man only. Herpo the Fow. He was the OG Dark Wizard, and absolutely foul, as his name suggests. This man basically invented evil as a concept in the wizarding world. He's credited with creating the very first Horcrux, and for that, he definitely murdered someone. And while we don't know what exactly he used for this Horcrux, we can pretty much guarantee it wasn't like a cute trinket or anything remotely wholesome. He also created the first basilisk using a bizarre technique where he placed a chicken egg under a toad. He was ironically also a parcel tongue and used it to control his basilisk, and reportedly other pet snakes. You could say that Herpo the Fowl's entire life was a blueprint for every dark wizard who came after him. Voldemort, Salazar Slytherin, they were basically just following in Herpo's footsteps. Are you obsessed with the darkest corners of the wizarding world? Subscribe for more. When it comes to self-righteous villains who genuinely believe they're saving the world while essentially holding it hostage, there are plenty of famous examples. In the Harry Potter world, that character happens to be Gellert Grindelwald. Grindlewald wasn't your typical bad guy. He was in a completely different league entirely. Even more so than Voldemort. This man didn't just want power for the sake of being powerful, he had a vision, a dream, that he was going to go to any lengths to attain. And honestly, that somehow makes him even scarier. Grindlewald was, by all accounts, insanely talented. He was a prodigy ever since his childhood, and was basically only topped by Albus Dumbledore. He even got himself expelled from Durmstrang for doing, let's call it, experiments with dark magic. And when a school like Durmstrang, which isn't exactly known for its moral compass, thinks you've gone too far, you definitely have gone too far. He had this whole greater good philosophy where he genuinely believed wizards were better than muggles and should rule over them. He also genuinely believed he was doing the right thing. He wasn't just evil for the sake of it, he thought he was some kind of savior. He started one of the most devastating wars in wizarding history and was all about domination and fear. Even in defeat, Grindelwald stayed loyal to his beliefs. He was not a villain, he was a visionary, something even Voldemort could not accomplish. Not ending a most evil wizards in Harry Potter list with Voldemort would just feel wrong. He's basically the guy who set the bar for evil in this universe. No matter how many dark wizards and witches we talk about, no one can top Voldemort. He was the man who orchestrated almost everything that happened in the series, and it was also solely him who was openly feared for the complete lack of anything remotely resembling humanity. And unlike so many other characters on this list, Voldemort was only evil for himself. He only cared about his own self and was as cruel to his own people as he was to his enemies. He controlled people through fear or through blind oppressive loyalty. Every step he took was calculated to gain more power. Tom Riddle wasn't bad because of his circumstances. Sure, he had a pretty messed up childhood, no doubt about that, but he always had this evilness within him. He meticulously built his empire of evil, one crime at a time. One of the darkest aspects of Voldemort's story is his absolute disregard for human life. Murder wasn't just a means to an end for him, it was a tool he wielded for literal immortality. His Horcruxes were proof of that. Each life he took chipped away at whatever remnants of humanity he might have had, and reduced him to something that was not a human. His lack of humanity wasn't just a side effect of his evil, it was the very essence of who he was. Evil wizards like these remind us just how horrible magic can be if it falls into the wrong hands. Which one do you think is the most sinister of them all? Let us know, and I'll catch you next time.